ready.
Go ahead.
All right, we'll ask everybody to stand up if they would, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thanks for everyone for being here on this nice June evening, for sure. As we get started on our agenda, just a reminder to be mindful of our vision of inspiring all learners to be engaged and successful, our mission to provide an enriching environment to meet the needs of all learners, and then our core values of respect, integrity, students first, and excellence. All right. We need to approve the agenda. Approve agenda. Thank you. Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Hearing of delegations, there are none at this point. The consent items. Corey, as you went through the board bills, anything to report on?
Oh, everything was
Or
good.
invoices or whatever, okay?
There were a lot there.
There was a lot there.
Do you try to do a lot of stuff before year end? Is that why there was?
Yeah, there's some stuff we've decided to move to 21-22 supply-wise. As we look at it, we want to make sure we stay in a surplus, so we made that change a few weeks ago on future supplies. But other than that, there's a lot of stuff to end the year.
Motion to approve consent items.
Thank you, Brent. Do we have a second?
Second that
All
motion.
right, thanks, Tom. Motion and a second for consent items. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Communications to the board, none scheduled at this point. Joe, we'll kind of roll into your report then.
Yeah, in the superintendent report, kind of a financial review. We did a lot of this in the retreat, but our revenues versus expenditures, still look very, very good. Our total revenues through May are $16,450,000. Total expenditures are $14,922,000. So that looks really good. That gap, that'll close over the last month as we pay a couple months of teachers' salaries, for example, and we close the years. But we still think we'll end with a surplus. We do think that larger surplus is next year rather than this year. But there will also be ESSER dollars that are claimed for that have occurred throughout the year. So in these expenditures of $14,922,000, some of that we will claim reimbursement through the ESSER dollars, which is how that process works. Up front, we got $60,000 last summer.
Yes.
The first ESSER one, they actually gave us the money, but that was the only round that they gave us the money. The rest of it, we claim back for our expenses. So some of these expenses that are in here, we're going to get revenue for. Now, on all the forecasting that we did for you out to 5 years, we had all those ESSER dollars, basically they're in and out, so they don't show up positively or negatively for us, because we plan to spend those. But so that will impact that as well. Our expenditure dashboard, which is one of the printouts that I linked in your agenda, we've spent 88% of our year-to-date expenditures, 85% of our salaries and benefits, and 97% of our other, because we are to the point where we're really through those other expenditures. It's just finishing out the year with salaries and benefits and some of those other things. Our revenue dashboard shows our revenues year-to-date. It also has the top 10 general fund sources, like where we get ours, which I think that's interesting to look at. Property tax and state foundation aid are always going to be our two biggest sources of revenue. So that's the money that comes from the property taxes in our county, and then state foundation aid is what comes from the state. We will always receive more in property tax in Kasuth County than state foundation aid because we're a very property-rich county, and our agricultural land has a lot to do with that. If you don't have land valuations as high as we do, you might get more in state foundation aid than property taxes. But either way, these two have to fill the bucket. So it's just where you generate more or not. But as we reviewed in our in our retreat, finances look very good. The yearly ones look very good. We're going to finish the year well. We're projecting a good financial year next year also. Any questions on any of those finances? ISAP, Iowa Statewide Assessment for Student Progress. We didn't take that last year in the closure. We are back this year. This would only be the third year for ISASP. Before that, they were called Iowa Assessment, and I say that because it makes some comparison data odd and unique, but they still have some formulas to do that. At this time, they don't have any of their reports done. Typically, we'll have reports that will give us state comparisons. It'll give us district, building reports. All they have right now is individual students. So then we went through and manually compiled some of that to give us some data, but there will be a lot more data that we can provide, probably in August and September. Mrs. Eishen and I have been working on it, Mrs. Schucher as well. Mrs. Schucher put together a lot of this information for us. A couple things to think about. This is every student who took the assessment. We don't necessarily report out on every student who takes the assessment if they're not here for a full academic year, for example, so that'll change some of it. This includes students who are remote, students who are here. It includes everyone. Some of our highlights, third grade math had 19% of their students advanced. I went back to 2 years ago. The state average was around 14% for that, so that's 5% higher than the last state average that we got. So that's a fantastic number. Also important to note that we were in a math pilot curriculum, K-5. Now, typically, when you have a curriculum change, you'll see a decrease first. This is a really good number, and it's our kids doing some great stuff here. Third grade ELA. ELA includes both reading and writing. Again, when we report out, we report those typically separate, but they don't have those reports yet. But we had an advanced percent of 12, which is another outstanding number. Fourth grade math had 80% of their students proficient. Talk about the pilot there. Fourth grade ELA had 89% of their students proficient and 16% of students advanced. So some really good stuff there from Lucia Wallace in our third and fourth grade. Eighth grade math had 12% of students advanced. Again, that's a good number. That's a big number, and 79% proficient. Eighth grade ELA had 82% of their students proficient. I talk about this, that's the largest grade in the district, which, so that would be a hard group to get big numbers in, but we did. So there's some awesome stuff coming out of our middle school as well. I know that's just kind of a snapshot, but we don't really have some of the other data, comparison-wise to give you at this time. So, but some good stuff, and we have a plan to give more of this to you. We're also going to use some cohort stuff, so when we look at our fall assessments, early literacy assessments for the first time, we typically just look at fourth grade. Well, we're going to compare it back to third grade, as those kids move, so you guys can see where we're at and how we're changing and how the kids are growing, which is one of the measurements that we report out on is growth, which will be interesting since we didn't take this last year. They do have formulas put in place to create that growth data for us, but it's not from year A to year B because year A doesn't exist in this case. So, but it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
You said this is the third year, but we've only really taken it 2 years then?
Yeah. So what they're going to do for growth is they're going to take Iowa assessment data and ISAS data. They're going to take like 5-year averages and then, try to figure it, because growth is part of your school performance profile. So it is weighted. So they have to have a growth component for us. Any questions on ISAS or going back to some of the financial stuff that we talked about?
We got a number on the total estimated or what we anticipate
Oh, yeah, 1.4 million? Yep, 1.4 million. So we, as you guys know, we have a number of positions that we're paying, you know, almost, you'll see that 20% of it has to be allocated towards the learning loss. Well, ours is closer to probably 85, 90%. We put our interventionists in place in all the buildings. We've talked about the IJAG program that we'll have in the high school. So we're paying for all those positions out of it. I did the numbers on that. We'll pay, it was over $1 million in 2 years in those positions. So that's where most of our money is.
How many positions is that? I thought there were 4 interventionists, right?
We got interventionists in every building. And the high school adds the IJAG, so that's 5 total positions. We're paying for our mental health therapist out of that position. And that's where we get to with all that stuff for multiple years.
For 2 years, yeah.
For multiple years, yeah.
12 salaries.
Thank you, taxpayers.
Yeah, yeah.
On the
Yeah, I
high
mean,
step,
we're a small district. I mean, think how much money's going.
I'll be in the private sector, you know, just, schools.
And that money is,
Andrea, you're going to say something.
No, I was going to ask a question about ISAP, so.
that money is driven through the Title I funding, so it's not necessarily a per pupil. You know, so the lower free and reduced, for example, well, the higher that number is, the more you'll get in return. So if you ever look at state comparisons of what districts are getting, you know, where we fall in schools our size, it's not necessarily the same money-wise. A school with higher free and reduced will receive more than we would, and vice versa.
Do we have targets for the ISAP?
That's where those state comparisons are nice that we don't have. So that some of these numbers, I'm just kind of throwing numbers out at you, which is tough for you guys. You know, 80% is a number we look at, that if our number is below 80%, we would consider that a universal instruction issue, you know. If it's 80% and above, we can intervene individually with children to impact those numbers and move it up. So I think if you gave a really gray summary number, I would say right there.
Yeah.
But we will be able to give you state averages and where we lie in those here in a month or two.
Any other questions or comments?
And our summer schools for which grades?
We have a couple different programs. We got the elementary summer blast that we have over 50 students at. That's off and running. We also have a high school summer school program, which there's some credit recovery components, but not all. We have that going right now also. So not as many students in that, but we still have a number of students in here working hard.
So the elementary would be some of the grades that take the ISAS or not?
Oh yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Questions, any further questions? Okay, we'll move on to new business then. Looks like our first one is to approve a Grant Wood software agreement.
Got a new name here, Vista, Iowa. Grant Wood is our financial management software that we use in the district. The license fee is a per pupil amount. Something that we've used for a number of years. You know, it's great for us. It's where Mary Beth spends most of her time. I do recommend the approval of the Grant Wood software, now called Vista.
Make a motion to approve Vista software.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Todd. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And some of our normal June,
Yeah.
moving forward, the bread bill.
We have our bread bill. We only received one bid back. We sent it out to 3. Panel Gold Bread was our low bid. They were also our bid the past few years. So I do recommend the Panel Gold Bread bid of $9,408.
A motion to approve, I'd like to approve
Thank you, Andrea. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be approve our milk bid.
Milk bid, we did get 3 back. The first one, they were not able to offer, which would be Hanson Dairy, they were not able to offer the sizes we were looking for. A&E and Kemp's both gave us bids back. The Kemp's bid was our low bid at $62,405. They're also the bidder that we had from last year. So I recommend the Kemp's milk bid for that amount.
So moved. Thank you, Jay. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments?
Big difference between the bids? I'm just curious.
7,000, I think. Yeah, 69,000 was the other one. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
All right, any other comments?
Just I noticed that there was so many dozen hot dog I mean, do they estimate that based on menus, or how do they bid that? Is that?
Yeah, that is what they do, based on our menus and our use, and a lot of it has to, it's the same amount for every one, so really what they're really bidding is the individual
Yeah,
price
sure.
for each one, but we give them, this is what we've used before. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, resolution to transfer funds for athletic equipment.
Something that we've talked about in some of our memos that I've sent to you. Iowa code does allow for school districts to transfer funds from your general fund to your student activity fund with a board resolution to do so. Our student activity fund, as you guys know, has had a really tough year. If you went back to March 2020, we had no revenue from any spring sports. With how we did summer sports last year, we did not have any revenue, but we did have expenses. Went into the fall, we had some spectators, but not many in volleyball, so certainly our revenue dropped drastically there. Winter sports, very, very little revenue. So what we have here is about a year and a half, year and a third of very low student activity revenue, where we still held most of those expenses. They've done a really good job. They're in a pretty good place, but this would be a year to transfer money from the general fund to cover those. The number I've put in there, and that's in this resolution, is $13,811, what that would be is the protective and safety of equipment that we purchased during the last school year, which is something that we legally can transfer to cover every year. There is legislation that allows us to transfer any number we want this year, and that's a COVID thing. I just stayed with what the normal code guidelines would be, so that's what that $13,811 would be.
That's for 20, correct? 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How
Now,
far
that-
behind were we when, should we have been 30 grand or 50 or?
I haven't looked at it exactly that way. It wouldn't be 50. It wouldn't be like that. It's
But
probably.
this 13 is enough?
Yes. Yep. Makes it
Is
so.
any kind of a loan be paid back or not?
No, this is just a straight transfer.
All good questions.
Yeah, that is a good question.
And this is just a one-time thing.
Yep, the way that we've done it, you can do this every year. We can transfer from the general fund to the activity to cover protective and safety equipment every year. Some districts do that. Mary and Beth and I, we actually talked to some to make sure we had the resolution and wording correctly, and it's something they do every year. Every year at the June meeting, they transfer that money back.
What would be the benefit of that?
Well, if your general fund can handle that, it makes it so your activity fund is more whole. We can't use general fund money throughout the year on those activity expenses. So, for example, we cannot use general fund money to buy helmets when we purchase them in the year. That's not a an expense we can do, but we can transfer it at the end of the year to cover that expense.
Use PEPA money to buy equipment?
We cannot.
Or is there a separate silo for athletic funding that comes from the state?
Not from the state, from just in our accounting. It comes from the same place, but we.
It comes from the general fund anyway, right? We just have to
Um,
audit.
Is that how you would say that?
Okay, what was the question again?
Well, you have an athletic budget, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
PEPAL, there's management, there's general.
This would be in the general.
So it comes from general funds anyways, right? You just set out a budget, it's still general fund money, right? Like gates to a football game, that goes back to the general fund, right?
No.
No.
It stays in the activity.
Activity.
account.
Activity fund.
So where does
That's
that-
that's how you pay for your officials.
Yeah, so
Yes.
where does the money come from before your gates to pay for anything on the activity? Just what's been built up over time?
Yes, which is why when you lose small amounts, it's pretty impactful. Where, you know,
We
the-
don't have-
Because they don't have a huge surplus anyway.
their revenue can only come from gates, activity ticket sales,
Fundraisers.
fundraisers.
Some
Yeah.
districts use that too to help make up for activities that don't have any income.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you really have this chunk of money, you know.
If we want to start a soccer program that didn't have a gate, we would transfer general fund money.
Well, it would come from student activity monies.
Yeah, it can help.
Salaries don't come from that, though. Salaries come from the
From
general
general
fund.
And it looks like the balance is $282,000.
In the student activity?
Any other questions? All good?
You know, ideally, these budgets are self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's
They
the,
can run themselves through the revenue they bring in, the expenses they take out, fundraising if they need to, it's all self-sufficient, and no money traditionally coming out of the general fund to cover it. That's how it's supposed to be. But in case of emergencies, COVID, or a board decision, monies can be transferred to a fund or loaned to a fund. You can loan money, for example, to the nutrition program. And the loan must be paid within, I think within the current, no, the loan must be repaid back to the general fund if you word it that way. So, but ideally, they are self-sufficient, all programs are self-sufficient.
Will we use emergency money for this?
ESSER?
can't be, no. The wording is very vague in the ESSER money, but if you generalized it, it's to raise academic achievement, you know, targeted towards that, which that can be about most things.
Could use it to build a new gym because we lost a year of education.
I don't think that would be approved. Capital, anything,
We're stretching.
anytime you use it on structures, such as,
I'm just, Joe, I'm just joking.
but like the HVAC, we have to get prior approval from the state for any of those. Salaries and those, we do not. We just spend it that way.
I'll make a motion for the resolution to transfer funds from the general fund to for athletic.
All right, thanks, Jay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Tom. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, approve our specialty underwriters contract.
Nursing contract, I think, is that right?
Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
you're right.
I crossed off one before I got to it. Thank you. Two,
Um,
actually.
Yeah.
Cassuth Regional provides our nursing services in the district. What the agreement allows for is for a nurse to be physically present at one of our schools for 7 hours a day. And we have multiple nurses who do this. They all have a different kind of home base for where they start, but they still would go and do go to all of our buildings throughout the day as needed. It's for a total of 1,500 hours in a school year. This is the same agreement we've had in the past. It's also the same contract amount as we've had for the past 2 years, which is great. So this would be the third year in a row at $96,153. Also, I think it's important to note that over the past year, they had a lot of responsibilities. They had a lot of communications. They're the ones who designate close contact. They're the ones who designate quarantines. We help them with some tracing, where kids are and those types of things. But it was a big year for them, and they really helped us a lot. So we thank them for everything that they did. But I would recommend the approval of this agreement.
I would just add, I had the privilege of having several conversations with them throughout the year. Communicating with them, extremely responsive and informative.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you asked for anything better, so they did an amazing job.
They really did. They did.
I think we get the same consistency. The nurses almost know the kids as well as the
Yeah.
teachers. I mean, we get consistency with them, and
Yeah.
it really is
Yeah.
great that they know the students.
You would never know if you were an outsider coming
Yeah.
in that our services were contracted the way that they were. You would just think we had, 3 school nurses, but it's, they really do a great job.
I would make a motion to approve our school nursing contract with Sioux Region.
Thanks, Andrew. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Todd. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further questions or comments?
I will abstain just because I'm employed by them.
Okay, we'll ask for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstaining. All right. Motion carries. Now we're going to go to the blacktop bid.
Yep. This is a budgeted Pebble expense. We usually have some blacktop work every year. These are replacement and improvement areas in the high school parking lot. Also, down by the home football bleachers, it expands it a little bit. And when we had a little bit of damage when we had some of the sand that was on there from the field project. So it's to fix all of that. And there is also some overlay in the Bertha Godfrey parking lot. So 3 different areas: high school parking lot, by the football bleachers, and at Bertha Godfrey. Blacktop Services gave a bid of $49,255. They've done most of our work in this area here in most recent years. So I would recommend the approval of the blacktop bid.
Did we get other bids, or is this?
We did not get other bids. We have, up to this point, they had been our low bid, had done a lot of our work, so this is the one that we did get.
Motion to approve the blacktop bid.
Thanks. Brett, do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll get to the specialty underwriters.
Specialty underwriters is the insurance that we have on all of our electrical equipment in the district. The big one is our Chromebooks, all the student Chromebooks that we have throughout the district, which would be over 1,000 of those. We pay for this premium out of the management fund rather than the general fund, so knowing the expense and where it comes from. This quote is lower than last year, a little over $5,000, and last year it was $20,000 lower than the year before. So our bid has come down over $25,000 since 2019.
And why would that be? Is it we're not less claims, or?
No, a lot of it's as different products get taken off. As we didn't purchase Chromebooks last year, but we did get rid of some. So our number of electrical pieces was smaller. This year we have actually 437 laptops that are taken off and 31 tablets, which is,
That's a lot.
yeah. We did have all new staff computers this year, so those were some increases, from last year's. We'll have a number of Chromebooks that we purchase with ESSER dollars.
Chromebook is considered a laptop, I'm assuming?
Yes, yeah. Actually, gear dollars, which is federal funds given to the governor that they gave to the schools. We're purchasing a number of Chromebooks with those dollars.
So, like with that 437, is that kind of clean up? We went through and cleaned out closets and.
Yeah, ones that won't update anymore, no longer can be repaired. They get to a point where when they can't receive the updates from Chrome anymore, they just don't operate very well, and that's usually when we recycle them. A lot of the physical damage we send in and get repaired, which is why we have this insurance.
And they cover that.
They do, all of it, including our labor when we work on them, for our IT guys.
Good questions, any other? All right, hearing none, we need a motion for approval of the. Thank you, Andrew. Did I hear a second? Brent, thanks. So motion and a second. Any other further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Another standard June kind of authorization for
Yep,
us. So
every-
Beth can pay the bill.
Yep, every June, we need to approve authorization to have Mary Beth pay the June bills as they are due to help with our year-end process. So, we have the time period from the June board meeting to the end of the month. This allows her to pay those, get them paid, and let us wrap up and finish the fiscal year. So this is a typical authorization for June for us to finish the year, and I recommend authorizing Mary Beth to pay June bills as needed.
I make a motion to authorize June payments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Open enrollment, just a few.
I think just two. We have 2 open enrollments this month. One student has applied for open enrollment to attend an online school for next year. That student was also remote during the 2020-2021 school year. The other student is open enrolling in from the North Union School District. I do recommend approval of both of these applications.
Make a motion to approve the applications for open enrollment.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Open enrollment carries. Motion carries. New contracts.
We have 8 new contracts this month. Blair Bradley, High School Business. This is replacing Ashley Nichols, who resigned in April. Blair will be receiving a CTE authorization from the Iowa Department of Education. What that means is a person with a BA degree and 4,000 hours of experience is eligible for this authorization. So he will be receiving that. Missy Creeps, middle school ELA. This is replacing Lauren Foudy. She's been teaching in the Belmont district. She has 25 years of experience, member of their TLC leadership committee. Comes highly recommended. Roger Elbert, high school custodian, replacing Jeff Gish, who is currently transitioning to the director of buildings and grounds for Rick Adams retiring. Roger has many years of experience in similar positions throughout in the community. Calvin Brandt, as a middle school teacher associate, we had, if you remember, a few of those retire and resign at the end of the year. Liz Bradley, as our AD secretary in central duplicating. This will be replacing Margot Adams in central duplicating, who has retired. We're restructuring some of our responsibilities, including the AD secretary and the PAC. Liz has been doing some of that work, administrative assistant work. Liz is also currently our head girls track and field coach. Brittany Hoover, who we approved last month for middle school PE for 8th grade volleyball. Danelle Bradford as a teacher associate at Garrigan, and Carla Granginette for a teacher associate at Lucia Wallace.
All right. Need a motion to approve new contracts.
Make a motion to approve the contracts.
Thanks, Lori. Do we have a second? Thanks, Brent. We have a motion and a second. Approve new contracts. Any further discussion?
One quick question.
Yep.
Yep.
What do we have left to fill for positions?
We have 2. Well, we have 3. We have middle school and high school social studies.
That's 2 positions.
It is. It is 2 positions. One of those will be paid out of ESSER dollars. It'll be for 2 years. And then we have the middle school interventionist, which was going to focus on math. On that, all three are a struggle right now. We interviewed 4 candidates for social studies a week and a half ago. We did a lot of work on that today, including contacting everyone with that endorsement that is applied for a job in the state this year, which is 621 of them I sent out today. So we're working hard at it and seeing what else we can find.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resignations.
We have 5 resignations. Ryan King, middle school, high school social studies. Christian Perdoma, high school library associate. Pete McGuire, bus driver. Darren Krug in food service, and Julia Birdie, middle school teacher associate.
Okay, need a motion to approve the resignations. Thanks, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we'll look to go into closed session for the superintendent evaluation under 21.51-I. To go into that closed session, we would need a roll call.
So you need a motion.
Motion first.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jay.
Second.
And second, Andrea. Now we need the roll call.
Bartow,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Limbaugh,
Yes.
Louwagie,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll enter into closed session. So we'll ask you then to close the camera or shut the camera. We'll give a few minutes here. Then we'll give
There's
the
actual rules for closed session, we're gonna